normally do this. There we go. That will become useful later. So yes, hopefully as you're coming in, hi everyone. We're just getting started, just wait for a few more people to drop in. But yeah, you will see a couple of polls at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to answer away. So we've got, what features of interactive webinars are you most excited about? Assuming this could be one of the first times you've probably seen one, really new feature within Marketo. And also, yeah, just be interested to know which webinar provider you're currently using, okay? If you're using one at all. Okay. So yeah, reasons why, and some of the cool things we can do with these polls, we're going to talk about a little bit later. Okay. Cool. A few more minutes. But yeah, what's everyone think so far, kind of to the layout, kind of how it looks? I like the idea of having polls and things to kind of talk about right at the very beginning, right?
Just makes the session a lot more collaborative right off the bat, so people can start clicking around on things rather than doing the normal thing that we do, which is come in and listen to the music.
Yes, there is a distinct lack of instrumental jazz for this webinar, but that's fine. We're going to make up for it. How do you submit your vote? You should be able to just select the
your
ratio button.
Yeah, the one that you want, and then when we get to the point just before we move on, we'll end the polls, and then you won't be able to change it anymore. So you will be stuck with the one that you choose.
Choose carefully. How do you ask a question, Sarah? Well, that's a good question you've just asked, actually. We are going to move on to, this is all going to change in a second.
It will.
Like seamlessly.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yes, definitely. Cool. All right, let's get going, shall we? So, welcome everyone, like I said, to our interactive webinar on Marketo Interactive Webinars. This is kind of a topic that we've wanted to kind of look at for a while, purely because I think within Marketo, we're beginning to see, or we see a lot with the clients that we work with, the event marketing channel is a really, really key part of our marketing mix. And what you can do with it through Marketo has traditionally been pretty good, especially for webinars, because you've got a lot of really native integrations that obviously a lot of those that we put on the screen there. So yeah, GoToWebinar and Zoom, they're able to manage and share and communicate things like the unique URL, and like without having to, well, normally having to use these platforms for your autoresponders and things. Being able to bring all of that in-house in Marketo is a really, really big piece of it. So move things around. And we're going to explain all of this as well in just a second. But yeah, just quickly, for those of you who haven't been on one of our webinars before, we are Clevertouch Consulting. We are a MarTech specialist consultancy based just outside of Winchester. Okay, and yeah, it's our design. We are here to help you make sense of MarTech, of this landscape, okay, of these platforms that are they're complex. They've got lots of individual use cases, features, and which ones are worth using and which ones work for you guys. Okay, so that's us. We are, you may have heard of it. We created the MarTech Spine, so a core set of platforms to be used within your marketing stack, if you like. Okay, rather than that wider remit, we go with, and we recommend a bunch of much more tactical and tailored platforms that will get you the results that you need. And that's through our Simplify, Connect, and Inform philosophy. We're an Adobe partner, and we were working with Marketo, been working for them for a while now, before they were bought out by Adobe, and we're even Marketo's International Partner of the Year as well. So that's the business. This is us. So I'm Chris. So I'm head of enablement. One's looking much smarter than the other. Nearly wore that top today. So I'm head of enablement here, and Marketo architect as well. And I'm joined by Alex Seabrook, our head of technical delivery as well. Okay, and we're going to take you through all of this and what it means and why you might find it super useful. Okay. So yeah, first up, what we're going to do is just going to give you a bit of an overview of the platform. Okay, it's be about half an hour. We're going to have a bit of a look around like this, what you see on the screen, and how it looks in the back end of Marketo as well. Okay, because there's some really interesting new things that have actually come up, specifically around the user interface. Okay, that we're going to show you, and then some even cooler stuff, which is actually a lot of the interactive elements that a lot of you have used already. How can we utilize that when we are reporting and looking at the insights that we can gather from our events? Because traditionally, I guess we've always been quite used to events being, okay, they attended and they didn't show. Let's use that and progress with it. Now we can do a lot more. You can do that with this. Okay, so I'm going to hand it over.
Perfect.
Mr. Seabrook.
Cool. So yeah, what we're currently seeing here is Adobe Connect. So this is the platform that Adobe have chosen to use for their webinars, and it does integrate completely seamlessly with your Marketo instance. You haven't got to create a new login or anything like that. And as of, I believe now, everyone has interactive webinars in your Marketo instance. So within Connect itself, it looks like this. So it's all built on pods. So you can see the different elements. So we've got like our video in the top left right-hand corner. We've then got our question and answers. And then we've got share ideas, or we can put in surveys and polls. All of that's the fun stuff. But what we're going to do is we're going to go and completely forget about all of that so far. And then we'll have a look at the back end of it. So again, all of these layouts that you're seeing at the moment are pre-set up for us. So we would build these as a template, or as it's known in Connect, as a room. And now hopefully everyone is seeing, because I've lost my chat, it's top right hand corner. There we go. I go preview screen. There we go. You guys can all now see that. So within Marketo itself, this is what the event program now looks like if we change from using an external partner to the Marketo interactive webinars. So we've got a brand new shiny layout. But what we're going to do before we even get to that point, we're going to go and have a look in the admin area and what the actual configuration looks like. So those of you that haven't been in the admin area before, this is what it looks like. Everyone else, it's a very familiar look. But what we've got is we've got this new one down at the bottom here, which is our interactive webinars. And the good news is it is super simple to essentially build it in. Marketo have done all of it for us. All you have to do is you have to apply individual users to a license. So with those licenses at the moment, there isn't a limit on the amount of people that you can assign that can go and use the interactive webinars. But if you log in as someone that isn't assigned a license, they won't see the option. So it's quite nice. It's a very easy way. If you've got, say, like an events team, you can give the events team the licenses, but then everyone else doesn't have it. With the license that everyone gives, or that Marketo are giving you free out of the box, there are some limitations to it. So with the free version, you've got up to 12 events that you can host. In those, you can have up to 500 attendees in each one, and you get up to 6 gig of storage, which is actually quite big, but that's for if we are going to be adding in, say, like PDF files, all of your images, your documents, those kind of things that we're adding in. But the main thing on that, and the main limitation, is it is only for, I saw a question pop up there, I think. We've only got 12 events that we can do. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, Marketo have then essentially added in 2 extra layers. Prices at the moment are, I talk to your account exec and they will let you know. But the middle package straight away is unlimited events. It still has a capacity limit, but it's been upped to 1,000, and you have a storage capacity of 6 gigabytes. And then if you move to the top tier, you then have unlimited storage. Event capacity is still at 1,000. You can have unlimited events, but the biggest difference is you can run 2 concurrently. So if you move to that top tier, we can now run 2 events at exactly the same time. So if you're a company that is doing a lot of events, you're hosting a lot of webinars and things like that, you can run 2 at the same time. Big difference there. So, but yeah, essentially to add in a user, we're just going to go in, we'll select our user, click add, and it is literally that simple.
If you don't do this, you physically won't be able to see the option to create an interactive webinar.
Yep.
Okay, so when you build your event program, it will give you that option now to use this interactive webinar. But if you're not a user who does that, then you won't physically be able to see the option.
Yep. So what Chris is talking about there, if we go new program and I select our event program, and then we select a webinar. This is a very sensitive mouse. We then have the new option here. So you have what would be classed as a standard option, so those partner webinars, or we have the interactive webinars. So once you've enabled that license for that specific user, they get that new option. But then once you've created your interactive webinar program, this screen is now what you'll be seeing. So we've got a lovely clean UI. So Adobe has obviously spent a lot of time listening to the community, figuring out the bits that we actually want to see. And for the most part, it's so much easier to use as well. So like we have normally, so we've still got all of our tabs at the top. We're coming straight in with the details. We can see the channel, we can see the title, we can see the event partner. So this is making me think that this is going to be the UI that is going to be universal eventually. The date on that is still TBC. But we can schedule in here, and then we have our nice big link here, which shows that we can go and design our webinar. We'll come on to that a little bit later. But once we've designed our webinar, and this is one of the features I really like on this, is we now have the option to add in co-hosts and presenters. So whereas before I would have to find a way of getting one of our presenters in early or something like that, I can add them in here. They don't have to be a Marketo user. They can be completely external. I put in their email address and it will send them a unique link that will bring them into our webinar room directly as a presenter or as co-hosts. So if you've got more than one person dealing with all of the back end part of your webinar, it can be quite helpful to have more than one person. What we've also got as well is on this right-hand side, a few little tips. So it's obviously new and we all want to be following best practice where possible. So it kind of has a guide on how to design an effective webinar, how to design your rooms, but then also reminds you to go and create your landing pages and your email programs and things like that. So if you're brand new to this, you can still follow it step by step, which is really good. In here as well, what we're also seeing, so with our assets, they've made it a little bit clearer now with our, say, expirations. So this has always been a feature, but now what we can do is very easily come in, select a particular asset that we want, and we can set an expiration. So it means that we don't have to remember to go back and turn off our autoresponder or something like that. So following an event, we expire a link, and then we know that that will basically be taken out of service. It will no longer be approved to send or anything like that.
This is really nice. Like this is it's a feature that's been in there, but it's been in Marketo a while. But actually having it sort of there, be able to select it quickly. Yeah, how many times have we ever seen, especially those of you that have run events before as well, that someone registers after the event, yep, and they get the autoresponder email. That's because you haven't remembered to switch it off, or you might have 6, 7 smart campaigns with triggers that work off your event. So yeah, this is a really nice way to, it's part of your process, expire your asset so you don't have to think about it when your event's done.
Yep. Then into our setup area. So this is very similar to what we would normally see. So here is where we've got our tags and things like that. The main difference that we're seeing with setup as we would in the normal program is this is the only place that we can now sync to CRM. So whereas before you'd be able to pop in, your Salesforce or your Dynamics campaign at the beginning on your summary page, we've now got to come into our setup. Does exactly the same thing, just in a different location. Beyond that, we've then got our members tab. It looks exactly the same, it's just being given a slightly new skin. And then we have our tokens. Now, this is where I get really Marketo nerdy about things. And this one got me quite excited when I saw it. We now have the option to, one, create folders with our tokens. So we can now group all of those tokens and make them look nice so that we don't have long lists. But we also have the option to import tokens. So if you've got programs like an event that has lots of tokens, we've got our calendar invites, we've got our event titles, event timings, all of those, we can import them from other programs. So it saves me so much time now. I'm not having to go in, recreate everything. I can go into a program, pull out all of those existing ones and pop them in here and just update. As I said, it's a very nerdy thing to get excited about, but I do get excited about these ones.
So I guess we're hoping, but the idea is that, this is maybe a bit of a sneak peek into what all Marketo program setup could look like in the future.
Yeah.
I guess it wouldn't make sense for it just to apply to this. So yeah, all unconfirmed, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah.
You heard it here first.
Hopefully.
So what we'll do now, though, is let's have a look at Adobe Connect. I won't spend massive amounts of time on here because otherwise this will run on for far too long. But when we move into so if I click design our webinar, what it will do is it will bring us into here. And the first thing it will do is it will ask us to select a room. So our room is just essentially the template or the option that we're going to use, the layouts that we're going to use for our webinar. And when we come into here, we have the option to build a brand new one. And that will give, if we select this, it will give us a set of templates that we can use. So in here, we've got different templates, and these are pre-built ones for us. So if you know that you're doing a product showcase or something like that, it will give you a set of templates pre-built so that you don't have to start completely from scratch. What you can do as well is you can come in here and build your own. Or what you can do is go full Blue Peter and select one that you've built previously. That's what I'll do today. And what we'll do is we will show you the setup for the one that we're essentially using for this. If Adobe Connect allows me to enter this room. If not, we'll go into a template and we'll do it from the start.
Yeah, just like planned. Yeah, it normally takes a few seconds, this one anyway.
But what this will do is if you're using one that you've previously used elsewhere, what it will do is it will essentially mean that you can have basically a template that you can use over and over and over again. I say that. There we go.
Let's just ignore the preview.
There we go. So let's turn our faces off and we won't make it so that we can hear everyone.
You basically have to go into the room, like almost as a participant, almost, don't you, to join it itself.
So here we've got Inception. So what we can do, this is where it's going to be interesting. We're already in this one.
Doesn't like that we're already in the template of the room
that we're trying to use, which is fine. We can work around this, I think. So if I leave, is it going to take us all the way out?
No, because if you go exit, you click on this and just go exit.
There we go.
There we go. And then if you close that down, excellent.
There we go. Lovely. And then if I open up a new tab in Chrome, look at that. It's all planned because every demo works perfectly the first time you do it. So while I get you to,
I'll do the tech bit. You've broken it, so it's fine.
I'll just get you to fix it for us. But while we're doing that, let's have a look at the screen that we're currently on because I haven't broken this one yet. So in here, what you can see is we've got different areas that we're showing. So top left-hand corner, we've got a banner. So this is essentially a share block. Now in here, we can share an individual screen, we can share a document, or what we can do is we can share a whiteboard, which is quite handy as well. So if we want to type things or allow a whiteboarding session, we can get different people to type in there and write on those. At the bottom, we've essentially got our polling areas. So those polling areas are a chance for us to gain info, essentially. Or if you're running more of an enablement session or something like that, that would be a chance for you to, the session is being recorded, yeah. This would be a chance for you to basically select questions or something like that. So you can post things out to the people that are attending the session. Again, keeping in the idea of keeping it as collaborative as possible. It's cool. So now we're back on. So if we go back into our full share and reshare our screen, there we go. And then we can preview. So that is one thing as well that you will see when you're in here. You share your screen, it just gives you a lovely message telling you you've shared your screen. You then have to give it the option to preview so that you can see what you're sharing. Otherwise, it's slightly disconcerting that you're not sure what you're doing. So inside here, if we go change room or template, and we'll start as a fresh one. So if we go select room, select a new one. Yep. And then we'll take a template. Pick your favorite one.
Workshop session.
Workshops. Lovely. And then if we go use this template and then refine, and then we'll enter our room. So when we select those templates, these are all pre-built ones. So we don't have to necessarily keep any of these, but it's giving you the guys that you can essentially use these straight out of the box, which is nice and handy. So as I said, we've got a share option here. So by hover, it should give me a nice big mouse eventually. But what we've got is we've got the option in here as well that we can start to draw on this if we want. So I can select a pen and we can add in a few values, obviously Picasso. Then beyond this, we've also then got a list that we can see our attendees and we can see our chats. Now with our chats as the host, I can open these out so I can have our host chat. We can also have our presenters chat. So we can have different chats that are spread between different people essentially, meaning that as presenters, you can queue people up saying it's your turn that will be next. Or from the host, you can see there are questions that have been asked and things like that. It doesn't mean that everyone has to see everything that you're running through. Beyond that, we've obviously got the standard things. We've got our video feeds. So these can be, as in this case, very big, or you can have them small as just a thumbnail that's sitting on the side. We've also got our notes areas. Now I can have these locked down. So it's just something for me to put, say, trainer's notes on to say, we were going to go and have a look at this thing. We'll have a look at that thing. Or I can open these up. So again, in with that idea of collaboration that lots of people can work on them.
And there's loads of these different types of pods, right? So,
yep. So
there you go.
Up here, we've got all of the different options that we've got for various pods. So, there are some that are very simple, like our video, it's on or off. But then with our chats, we can bring in different chats. We can have a look at files. So the files and the links, I think, are fantastic. It's an easy way for me, especially from a training perspective. I'm putting, we've done a session, I can put the deck on the last layout, then it's straight away available for everyone to download. They haven't got a, I'll send out the deck after the session or anything like that. And then obviously pop quiz. I'm not saying there will be one in this session, but it's always good to keep people on their toes.
Mm-hmm.
And beyond that as well, we also then have presenter areas. So in here so I've got one of these on the actual webinar that we're showing. Hopefully you can't see it. Just got all of my presenter notes in there. We can see the results from the polls and the surveys, the Q&A. But then also we've got the option for individual chats that we can have in here. Plus I can also see level of engagement. So I can see how engaged people are. Hopefully we're in the green and, not further down, but it's an easy way to see how engaged people are with the content that we're providing. And these start to get quite big. So with ones like these, this is obviously set up for a breakout room. These would be really good in the sense that what I can do is I can then split people into different rooms. I can send people to different breakout rooms, and then they can have that whiteboarding session. As the host, I can then collate all of that information at the end, and we can then either send that out or we can have those as part of the recording at the end.
I think this is really interesting, because I think what it can do is it means that you can use these interactive webinars. Like, you don't just have this very fixed format like you do with other webinar providers. You can create a template exactly for a specific type of webinar, right? That has a completely different layout. You might have one where you do want to include a Q&A. You might have one where you want to not have any kind of engagement functionality, right? You can really tailor these to exactly what it is that you and your presenters actually want to deliver. Okay? And actually then also see the information you want to see. And it also helps, I think, and I'll do these, and I'll do a lot of training sessions as well, where it makes your life so much easier when you can just prepare the content like in the webinar room itself, like that, way in advance. So you then you don't have to worry about it in the lead up to it. It's already done. You can enter your room and you can get going. So yeah, we really like the flexibility. We can add our own layouts. And
you can add more in, you can take those out. And it's really good because we can build these templates in advance. So we can, again, like any other template in Marketo, use them over and over again. So that's it, looking at it from the sort of the front end. But obviously we host our events. Once we've hosted the events in Marketo, The next thing that we want to do is we want to then be able to follow that up with content. Now, historically, it's something that we would normally send thanks for attending. Here's the recording link. Here's a little bit more information, or we'd send, sorry, we missed you.
Yep.
Here's the link. Here's a little bit more information. And as a general rule, the sort of the route and the path that we would see is then that becomes a nurture, or that becomes a drip campaign based on that feature or something like that. What we have in Marketo now with the interactive webinars is we have a set of 5 purpose-built triggers and filters. It's not, and these are, so this was originally 4. They've now added in a new one. So we've got the responded to poll, which is now in there as well. They are adding more and more. So I think this will probably continue to grow. But with these are very, very specific, but add in a lot more functionality that we can do in the post event. So here we've got one that is asked a question. So obviously we had our Q&A board. So we had the question, I think Mark added one in there. Now, what I can do is I can set that now up either as a filter. I can have a smart campaign that will run as a batch after the event, or we can run it as a trigger. So as someone asks a question, I can automatically be doing things. So it reduces the massive amount of time that or the lag that we normally see between the event and the post-event, and it really shortens that time so that we can be a lot more proactive. In this case, short example, did someone ask a question that wasn't answered? Well, in that sense, what I can do is maybe I send out an email to them and say, I know you asked a question about this and we didn't answer it. Would you like to talk to maybe one of the consultancy team or one of the sales team? And then at the same time, I'll send an alert to the consultancy team or the sales team and say, someone asked a question about this, maybe get in contact with them. So instantly I've created an event, something's happened in that event, and then I'm able to action that straight off of the bat. The other ones we're seeing, so attends event. Now this one, again, I get really nerdy about.
This is my favorite one. Good.
So with this, when you start it, obviously you don't have all of these, but we've got lots of constraints when it comes to the attends event. So we can just do the very simple, did they attend? Yes, no. That's absolutely fine. That's how we're going to build, potentially the nurture campaigns. But now we have so much more that we can now drill into. So we can look at where they engaged because they were responding to our polls. Did they have answered questions? Did they have unanswered questions? But the next one is the one that is really cool for me because we've been asked to do this a number of times in the past, and it's really hard for us to do, is look at the amount of time that somebody spent either in a live, a webinar or with on-demand content. So rather than now somebody just coming into the event, spending 2 minutes in, and then I give them a score or we start engaging with them, I can now say potentially someone has to have attended 50%, or we don't want to deal with these ones until they've been in here for 70% or something like that. Or we break it down into minutes. It's an hour-long session. As long as they've been in 30 minutes, I'll give them score, or we'll class that as an engagement. And I think that's a massive difference between what we're seeing with, say, BrightTalk or Zoom and things like that, that Marketo has definitely gone a step up with the ability that we can now really drill into how engaged people are in the event, on demand, or, if they're not engaged, were they looking at it? Because it could be that not only are we giving positive scoring, but potentially negative scoring if it's already been applied or something like that.
Yeah, I think this is great. And, a lot of you that are using other platforms as well, you might see a lot of this, right? And you might get a lot of that. We work with customers who have got maybe a custom integration or use a custom object to start tracking event attendance. That custom object or gets synced into Marketo and you have to manipulate it that way. Well, rather than have that sitting outside and bringing it in, it's all here in a trigger. So you can perform actions off of any of these, right? We all know how triggers work, right? So as soon as they happen, we can do something with it. And it might just be operational. It might be moving them between campaigns. It might be, like say, changing their lead score, dependent on if somebody, rather than just attends event, which is what the majority of us, right? Or the majority of those with lead scoring models will look at event attendance because it's kind of some of the best insight you've got on an event, okay? Well, now we can go into much more detail on that, and you can tier it, right? Somebody attends an event and attends for 2 minutes. Well, you might not want to score them as highly as someone who watched the whole thing. Right? Yeah. That's now, that capability is now there with these webinars. And I think, yeah, we'll look at some of the other triggers as well, right? Because, yeah, we've also got, like we do in Marketo, where we've got triggers, we have filters that you can then look back on and do batch work, batch campaigns through as well. Yeah. You've got all of that functionality now. But,
I think one of the ones as well that I quite like in here is the watch date. So, you know, quite often we put out content, we consider that, you know, our bottom of funnel content, somebody's really engaging with what we're talking about now. But it could be actually that we're only going to say that that's hot content for the next 90 days. Once it goes beyond that, it becomes a bit legacy. Maybe we've done something else that's similar. But what we can do is we can now say that actually, if we're going to do things, they drop off after a date, or we no longer score it as highly or something like that. So it just gives us the flexibility to really drill down into what people are doing and when they're doing it. The next one is a good one. You know, we've got clicks link. We've got clicks link in everywhere, but the difference is because, and I'll show you on our sort of wrap up page, I can include links in here. We can then see that actually what kind of content are people wanting out of the back of this. And as long as we've got a decent question that kind of shows, or we've given you saying, my one's going to be click as many links as you want and let's see what happens. But the idea being that you could really try and drive someone down a particular route or to specific content or specific pages on your site. And we know exactly when they've done it, and they've done it in the webinar, so we can act as quickly as we want to. We've then got the same for our downloads asset. So in here, works exactly the same. The constraints on this are fairly basic, but we still have the option that maybe we only want it to happen the first time. So if they repeatedly download our content, we don't want to keep upping their score or keep engaging them and spamming them with emails or something like that. And then the last one we have in here is the response to poll. So this one at the moment, I'm hoping we'll develop a little bit more, because the IntelliSense at the moment doesn't necessarily pick up the questions that I've added into our webinar, which would be really good. So it does mean that you have to not put spelling mistakes in like I did a couple of times, because then it definitely doesn't pull them through. And what we can do is we could have, you know, different campaigns that are looking for different responses. So it could be a poll. So in here, I've said what features is everyone interested in? It could be that we have different programs based on different responses, so that we can make sure that, you know, in an age where we're aiming for hyper personalization, we're making sure that the content we're sending them is relevant to what they're actually asking for, essentially. But that's just my take on them.
No. Yeah, but it's much better, right? Well, more than we've probably got right now, like using the other platforms or whatnot. And it really opens up some possibilities, I think.
And I think it will be, the more people that use this, the more that we are really going to start to see, you know, more interactions happening and people having different ideas and things like that. Stephanie, have you got a question? If you're talking, I can't hear you, unfortunately.
We have got a little section of Q&A at the end, so we can
always pop it.
Hasn't worked. We'll come back to you. That's fine. Sorry.
So yeah, those are all of the sort of post-event actions that we have. And as Chris said, we've got the option for both filters and also our triggers as well. So if you didn't want to run these directly as they happen, we've got the option to put these into a filter, and then we can run them as batch campaigns, so that we can ingest all of that information after the event as well. Then if we move on to our wrap up, so here we go. So this is our wrap up session that we've got here. So in here, what we've done is we've got similar to our polls in the sense that we've got a survey, so a way that we can get someone to put in just a singular answer. We've then got our little pop quiz as well. So I told you there would be one. So that is during the configuration section, we mentioned that you get a certain amount of webinars included in the limited access version of the plan. Can you remember how many it was? But then we've also got, as I said, all of the links and the files. So with these links, what we can do is you can go away, you can click on those with the files, you can download the content, and obviously, essentially it's still gated because everyone's registered for the event. But with the links, what I can do is I can share those with everyone. So if you, Chris, if you just hover over one of the links, I won't do it, but you see you've got the little rocket icon that we've got there. If you hover over, actually, I'm showing the screen anymore, so you won't. But with the little rocket icon, what that will do is that will basically mean that I can share that, or I can open that link for everyone that's in the room. Again, if you are delivering training or something like that, a really powerful tool in the sense that everyone is automatically on the, I don't know, trying to think of an example, but on your exam system or something like that straight away. Or if we've got an example or a paper or something like that, everyone is automatically able to be put onto it. And then obviously with the files and things like that, you know, it's one of those ones that we can get people to click away and download. And I think a big one is if you've got a training session with a set of decks, or even if you're in a collaborative working environment, you can instantly have that in there. People have got it straight away, and you don't have to follow up with the send and things like that.
Yeah, they're really nice just to have those readily available files, like ready for somebody to self-serve and engage, right? If something, I say we've got some links in there, we've got some blogs, we've got a link to our things like our recent State of Martech report that we've collaborated with University of Southampton with. Okay, so if you want it, you can click on it, you can check it out. Great, it's a lot of really good stuff in there. And then you've got the direct files as well in the middle. Okay, so you can go and get hold of them directly. Myself as a trainer as well, love the idea of being able to have like the content, the PDF, or anything additional on top of that, being able to be self-served directly within the webinar, right? Takes the work off of your campaign team and your event managers, okay, when it's all just sort of there that people can then go and see themselves.
Cool. So content-wise, surprisingly, I'm actually on time for once as well. Content-wise, that's all we've got for this sort of initial view of this. Potentially, we'll do others a little bit more in depth on sort of building rooms and things like that. But if you guys have got any questions that you want to raise, or pop your hands up and things like that, there is a little hand symbol at the top. I think that one also tells me to shush if needed. Yeah, speak more softly. Then you can fire away. Seren, do we have to accept someone on these? This is the one part that I've not yet posted and tested.
Let's have a play around. Hold the line, everyone. We're going to have a quick look.
And this is what I mean, is it's still very new. You know, we're running through this as quickly as we possibly can. But it turns out if you want to test people asking questions, you need people to attend your webinars.
Yes. So thank you for attending our very first webinar. Let's keep looking at how we can do this. I reckon
we need to enable people speakers. We go up into the here.
Yes.
And then we go speaker and microphone setup.
Cool. Well, this is just testing like in progress, really. Because what we could do with doing is, I wonder if we go back to
our Q&A section.
Yes. Aha, right. Okay. We're in. So I've got, so Lee should be able to talk now, should be able to unmute yourself. Yes.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Lee. Sorry, got you. Yes, we've worked that out really smoothly. Sorry, pal.
Yeah. So I guess a couple of questions would be, one, could you have this as just like a chat box rather than like having individual people speak? And then two, I guess, you know, you said with the paid version, there's like 2 sessions at once. I guess, how does that work with like a company that might have multiple divisions that might always that overlap, kicking people out, etc. Is that kind of just 2 per company, I guess, or is it 2 per sector? Can you differentiate that, or is that individual licenses then needed?
Yeah, so the concurrency that we're seeing at the moment is 2 per instance. So where your Adobe Connect is being linked directly to a Marketo instance, it's 2 sessions within that Marketo instance. What I've not played around with is how that is then affected by workspaces. So if you have multiple workspaces, is it just 2 over the entire instance or 2 per workspace? I think that's one thing that I need to go back to Adobe and just query on. But that's definitely something that we can come back with an answer once we've got the 401 from Adobe on. With regards to just having it as a chat system, the easiest way of doing it, so it was one thing that actually got raised by one of the guys here, is you just bring it in with your, essentially your chat option. You would just take it up so it takes the whole screen. So it can be that you start the session, you've got one very simple layout, which is just a chat option. And again, you've still got the option to have hosts and guests. So you can still have it essentially with a moderator in that chat.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Yeah, because I think we often have kind of like easy questions that are put in, aren't they? That we kind of run ourselves. So if it requires someone to speak, then that makes it a bit more difficult.
Yes.
Yeah. Now there was someone else that put their hand up. I can't remember who it was.
Yes, we have.
Oh, Sarah's put her hand up.
Sarah's put her hand up. Let me. Hang on, Sarah. Coming to you. You should be able to activate your microphone at the top now. Hello. Oh,
Hello.
we got you. Hello, we've got you.
Awesome. It was mostly just me playing about with how do you actually ask a question from the audience side.
So
that's my curiosity sated.
Like this. Yeah.
So what we can do is either do this, or if we have a Q&A pod. So there are 2 types of chats. We can have a chat that will run throughout all of your layouts, or the ones that we had on, I want to say layout 1, which is a chat pod, and that one is just within that layout essentially. The main difference is if you have one that isn't a pod, I think they call it I want to say it's a module.
Mm-hmm.
That one will basically run through each one of your layouts and will keep that conversation going. So it means that you can just have a chat that runs through your entire process.
Awesome. Thank you.
No worries. No worries. Just one thing as well. So those of you that haven't used any of the native Marketo integrations with webinar providers like Zoom or On24, if you wander around the registration process, we said we'd call this out.
Yeah,
or especially those that have taken the Marketo expert certification as well will be very familiar with a token called member.webinar URL. Okay, it's a program token effectively that it is effectively your token that gets populated with your unique joining URL. So the emails that you received for your autoresponders and your reminder emails, where you've got that obviously very, 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 very long
template breaking
joining URL. So instead of obviously where you go into your designing your emails in Marketo, you would use the member.webinar URL for where their unique joining URL comes into it. And we left the template as it was to show you how long the URL link was. So you may need to factor that in to your templates, don't we?
We do.
Yes.
We did it 100% on purpose.
Yes.
That wasn't a mistake in any way, shape or form.
Exactly.
The good news is from a coding side, it's a really easy fix. So all we would have to do is you essentially just hide the overflow. It doesn't change the link in any way. People can still click on it. But as we saw, it breaks your entire instance because it goes far too big.
Yes, it does. And yeah, just lastly as well, what populates that token? It's just like the other integrations do, and that's by changing somebody's program status to registered. Okay, so on a trigger where somebody fills out your registration form, you want one of your flow actions in your Smart campaign to change their program status to registered. Probably most of you do anyway that are building events. Okay, and that's the trigger. That triggers the registration within Adobe Connect. And Adobe Connect will then populate that person's member webinar URL token with their unique joining link. And that is also available to see in the members tab of the program as well. It happens all the time where you go in and say, somebody's not lost they've lost their joining URL, they can't find it. You can go into Marketo, look at the program, look at the members tab, and you can then pull that webinar URL straight out and share it with them, which is good. Cool. Lee, did you have another question, pal? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if I just missed it or maybe didn't understand it. For setting up, I guess, a speaker or presenter, do they have to have like a Marketo login, or can we have, or is it just if I was the kind of admin for the day and I could set you, Chris, up as like a guest speaker? Because I guess we sometimes have external speakers.
So if I share the screen, if we share the screen again, go on. So if we go back into the full screen share for everyone, and we share our Marketo one again. So what we'll do is if we jump into the one for this session, that one, yep. What you'll see here, Lee, when Marketo decides to play ball and load up for us, is once you've designed the webinar, you then have the webinar team. And you can see here that we've got 2 hosts, so myself and Chris, and then we've got our presenters underneath. So it's really easy. You click on there. It will at that point ask you, are they a Marketo user or are they external? If they're a Marketo user, it's just a drop down. You select one of the users. If they're an external user, you just put in first name, last name, and their email address. And then what that will do is that will send them a joining link, and then they are able to join directly into Adobe Connect. Again, you'll see that you've got the copy icons there because we both did it today where we couldn't find our emails and we couldn't figure out where we needed to or where to get the URLs, and you can copy them straight from there. So even if your co-hosts forget their login details, you can copy those and send them again.
Fantastic, thank you.
No worries.
Definitely, yes, Stephanie. Let me give you a microphone. There you go. Should be able to unmute yourself now, Stephanie. I'm hoping.
Oh, there we go.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. So sorry.
Okay, it's actually my headset. Just on that, and sorry if you did already answer this and I missed it, but for someone who will be a co-host, so for example, the person who does our webinars is not someone who uses Marketo at all. He is it's a product specialist. He's completely separate, doesn't use any back-end stuff. Would he still be able to design the way that the webinar looks and kind of move all the boxes and do all that just being a co-host, or does he need to have access at the back end and be able to do that and build it in there?
No. So as soon as we make them a co-host, then what they do is that link before the event will take them into the setup screen as if they were going through Marketo.
Okay.
We can have, so when we're building, designing the layouts and things like that, it will go into a preparation mode. And what we can do is we can have up to 10 people working in that one room at the same time. So, you know, obviously if you've got a very large room that you're going to have lots of different layouts and things like that, it can take quite a while to build. It's obviously going to be helpful if you've got more than one person in there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions from anyone? Perfect.
I'll move it back to the old wrap up. There we go.
There we go. Cool. So yeah, that was, I know there's a bit of a whistle stop tour of what is quite an in-depth platform, and definitely with the post events and things like that, there's lots more to explore. There's lots more things that we can definitely look and do and things like that. But from our side, I really like the platform. I think it's one that has a lot of potential and can definitely do a lot of things that other platforms potentially couldn't. But actually, I think we've got another question.
We do. Hang on, Satya. I'm just giving you access. There we go. Should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, Chris. Good afternoon. Satya from Henson Wade. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Question. Can you do post-webinar survey? So we have completed the survey. Can we now send, we have completed the webinar. At the end of it, we can send a survey outcome.
It's not something I've seen. So within the room itself, essentially once the webinar finishes, the room will close, and then essentially that's one of our uses used. So from what I've seen, there isn't a way that we can offer that survey afterwards, you know, in an email or something like that. But there's no reason why we can't have it that you've created it as a Marketo landing page, and then you have a link to it, you know, so that we have it in our links option here, put it in the center of the page, make it really obvious for someone, and then they can click through it that way. It's not necessarily maybe the best user experience, but there's always going to be a way around it that we can look at.
Thank you.
No problem. And I think at the moment as well, those of you that look at your notifications in Marketo or look at kind of what's new and follow the latest product updates, interactive webinars is one that's been getting like regular updates, like almost in every single release. There seems to be an improvement or a new feature added to interactive webinars. So it is something they're continuing to develop for sure. So who knows? It might be something that, especially with the community, it's something they asked for. No reason why they couldn't do it. There's a lot of focus on this tool at the moment. And yeah.
And it's definitely something as well. Remember that if you've got ideas or improvements that you would love to see in Adobe products, you're always able to raise a ticket essentially with your support, using the support function, and raise that as a suggestion. And we've done it a number of times, which are then features that we see in Marketo. So they do take them on board and they are listening to the community, which is fantastic.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you say whistle stop tour. I'm pretty sure I said half an hour. So
For 53 minutes.
no, we've had lots of great questions. So no, thank you all for joining. Unless there's any other questions, please do. We're here. Yeah, otherwise, thank you all so much for joining. I said we've recorded the session, so we're going to send out obviously some comms afterwards if you want to watch the recording back. If you don't know where to start, okay, if you don't know where to start with these, okay, and you just wanted to someone to take you around and sort of show you some of the other capabilities, or just throwing some sort of use cases around for what works for you and your business, please do get in touch. You'll see in our web links here, number 7 is contact us, so please do get in touch with us. Otherwise, you can always email training@clever-touch.com, okay, and we can support with anything you need there, okay? Even if it's just a bit of guidance to say, well, this is what we've got at the moment. If we move it across, what would it look like? Would it still integrate with Salesforce in this way? How would it affect my processes? We can absolutely help with all of that. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you all so much for joining. As I mentioned, yeah, let us know if you need any support. Otherwise, we will have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And we will see you all on the next one. Thanks, everyone.